All right, hello everyone. Welcome to a mini mock draft for the NFL draft for 2021. We're going to be doing picks 1 through 15 today, and I figured this format would be pretty easy because number one, it won't take as long to do all 32 picks as opposed to just half the first round. And number two, this format seems like a good idea because, we sort of know who the bad teams in the league are at this point. We're at the quarter mark of the season, heading into week five. I think a lot of the teams that you see up here at the top are probably going to stay here with a few exceptions. Like I think Dallas will definitely move up, and the Chargers will probably move up a little bit. The 49ers staying at 14 seems unlikely. So, but for the most part, I think a lot of the teams that you see here, the Jets, the Giants, the Washington football team, the Jaguars, the Broncos, I think they're destined to be where they're at, somewhere in the top 15. So this will just be a quick little look at where I think the landscape currently holds, and this is sort of what I think the teams will do, not what I would do personally. We may have a draft in the future where I make picks as the GM of all 32 NFL teams. But for today, I'm just going to sort of, try to address needs, best player available, and what I think the organization would do. So this is not based on what I would do if I had the finger on the button. If NFL draft content is sort of your thing, and you go back to when I sort of resurrected this channel back in the spring, that's really what I want to start doing. This is a way too early mock draft. It's only October, but it's never too early to start talking about next season, especially if your team is 0-4 and not going anywhere. So it's fun to do. We have the weekend scouting report videos every Saturday/Wednesday. And going forward, if you're interested in draft content, subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be doing a lot of it. We have team exclusive 7-round drafts. We'll have more mock drafts. We'll have situational mock drafts, and we'll have player profiles, all kinds of stuff that you'll need to get ready for the NFL draft coming up. So I'm very excited to have that as a focus point going forward. And today we begin that journey with a way too early October mock draft of the top 15. So let's get started. Let's make some picks. Okay, so after that long intro, we move on to the number one overall pick, and that's the New York Jets. Interestingly enough, in today's news, they had a presumptive positive COVID test, so it's unlikely to ascertain that this team is going to win any games going forward. Adam Gase is the worst head coach in the league. He is definitely getting fired once this is all over. And I think with the number one overall pick, no matter what team you are absolutely going to get Trevor Lawrence. I think this is a foregone conclusion unless something spectacular happens between now and April, which it always could. I think Trevor Lawrence is the unquestioned number one overall pick, no matter which team holds that pick. Sam Darnold is likely gone after this year. It's been 3 seasons. You're going to have a regime change. Despite ownership being sort of not involved, I still think that this is going to spark some big time changes. I think that we'll have a new head coach. We'll have a new coaching staff, and then I don't think Sam Darnold will be back. He will probably be released, and he will move on elsewhere. Next, we have the Miami Dolphins, who have the Texans number one or first round pick. So this should be Houston, but because of the boneheaded trades that what's his name made, Bill O'Brien, who is now fired, they don't have a first or a second rounder. Does the Houston Texans in 2021? So it belongs to the Dolphins. So Dolphins fans, you're rooting for the Texans to continue to lose for the rest of the season. So you can end up in this glorious spot. Now, we haven't seen Tua Tagovailoa play. I assume that they're going to keep him. I don't think that they're going to go after a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance in this spot. They really wanted Tua. They really liked him in the last draft. They made all kinds of efforts to get to meet with him before the COVID lockdown started. So I think the Dolphins are invested, and it's just a matter of time before he takes over. Until then, it's going to be the Ryan Fitzpatrick show. Now, when he does take over, I like the weapons around him. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams isn't bad. But at the same time, they could definitely use a legitimate blue chip prospect at the wide receiver position to sort of enhance or accelerate to his progress, if you will. So I'm going to go with the best wide receiver on the board at the number 2 overall spot, which I don't think we've seen a wide receiver go number 2 since Charles Rogers went to Detroit. I could be wrong about that. But I believe in Jamar Chase, best wide receiver in college football, even though he's not playing this year. He opted out. And that would be a fantastic addition to the Dolphins offense. Moving on to the New York Giants, I think this is another team that's probably going to be married to Daniel Jones, and I don't know how long of a leash Joe Judge has as the coach of this team, because this team is just so bad. And I mean, even with Saquon Barkley still healthy and still on the active roster and still playing games, I still think that this team would be terrible. It just hasn't panned out. Daniel Jones has looked pretty awful, and maybe that's correlation to Barkley not being there. But at the same time, the defense hasn't played well. The offensive line is tragic. They just need help everywhere. So with the amount of love that Dave Gettleman has for Daniel Jones, I don't think he's going anywhere. So I don't think Justin Fields is going to be the pick here. So I'm going to go with best pass rusher in the draft, and that's Gregory Rousseau from Miami. I think their defense needs to pick it up a little bit. This is, they've drafted pass rushers in the past like O'Shane Ximines, but they haven't spent a really high pick on a pass rusher. They did get Dexter Lawrence at 17 overall 2 years ago, and he's progressed nicely. But I think pass rusher would be something that they really need to invest in. Moving on to the Falcons, I've seen some wild takes with this pick. I really have. Oh, by the way, I should address the fact that this draft order is based off of the NFL's current draft order if it were to end today. So it's not reverse Las Vegas odds or my own personal, things. If you don't like this, take it up with the NFL. So, the Falcons desperately need help on defense. They could really use somebody in the secondary, but I think 4 overall is probably too rich for any of the corners in this draft. If CJ Henderson or Jeffrey Okudah were in this draft, I'd have no problem putting either one of those guys here, but they're not. They were picked last year. Could you get Patrick Surtain here and be happy with that? A little rich for my blood at this point in the season. So I'm going to go with a known commodity, blue chip prospect, somebody we haven't seen play yet, but they will be playing pretty soon here at the end of the month, and that's going to be Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. Why not get somebody who is going to be that good at the next level and not gamble on it, if you will. Moving on to the Jaguars. This is a position where I think you're going to see a quarterback. I'm on the record in the past as having said that if the Jaguars continue to win, Gardner Minshew will not be replaced. They'll roll with him one more time. But we've seen the athletic limitations so far this season from Gardner Minshew. They've won one game so far. It hasn't been great. When DJ Chark is healthy and active, the passing game does better. Jay Gruden has been a phenomenal play caller, and I can't help but imagine what that play calling and that offense would look like with somebody who's just more athletic than Minshew is. So I'm going to go with Justin Fields for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Ohio State quarterback at number 5 overall. Next, the Washington football team is in a weird situation, having just benched Dwayne Haskins and demoted him to 3rd string. From what I've heard, it sounds like it's some off-the-field, locker room related stuff as opposed to on-the-field play, because he's played pretty well, mistake-free football. Had a really decent game decent game last week. I don't think the losses are his problem. I listened to an interview on XM Sirius Satellite Radio with Ron Rivera where he said that, or he tried to make it sound like this has to do with them being still in a competitive division because they're in 2nd place and the 1st place team is 1-2-1 as of this recording. That to me sounds like coach speak. That because considering what we know about Kyle Allen, who is going to be the starter this week against the Rams, and the number of poor throws and decisions that he has made in his career, well, his short career, I don't think Kyle Allen is the answer, and this team is headed in the wrong direction. So, I think Dwayne Haskins is probably done in Washington because, you talk about team building and leadership and all this stuff. If it's really as bad as it sounds like it is, I don't see him sticking around. I mean, they have the balls to put Alex Smith as number 2 on the depth chart with the little bit of a leg that he has left. Is really all you need to know. Do I think they take Trey Lance here? No, I don't. There's going to be quarterbacks that are going to be available next year, i.e. Sam Darnold, and several others that will hit the free agent market that Ron Rivera could probably coax into coming to Washington, given the fact that they have Terry McLaurin. They also have Antonio Gibson, who is going to explode in the second half of the season, in my mind, bold take. So I think quarterback is probably off the table. I don't think Ron Rivera wants to develop one right away. He likes Kyle Allen as his backup. They could even go back to Alex Smith, as surprising as that would be. So I'm going to go with the Trent Williams replacement, and the fact that Penei Sewell is available at 6 overall is mind-boggling. So they're going to take the highly touted offensive tackle from Oregon. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is terrible. I think it's no mystery that they're going to go defense, especially secondary in the first round. And if they have a pick this high, they're going to be in luck because they get the services of either Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain. There's a couple other ones you could even argue in there, but I think those two probably stand out as the most noteworthy to be one of the first two corner names off the board. It's always questionable how it's going to work out because we did see A.J. Terrell get picked 16 overall last year. So I'm going to go with Patrick Surtain, corner from Alabama, double dip into that Alabama secondary and pair him with Trayvon Diggs, who's played okay, but, he's playing like a second-round corner, would probably play. Next, we go off to the Denver Broncos. This one's a little bit more difficult because you could put Trey Lance here easily. I don't think John Elway wants to do that. I think he's invested in Drew Lock. The offensive picks that they made last year speak volumes about what they want this team to be. Can it be that team? I don't know. I think they're probably going to have to do better at the running back position. Melvin Gordon is fine, but the stable as a whole has underachieved just immensely. I don't think they take a running back here. I think that would be extraordinarily silly to take a running back at this position or in the first round at all, unless it's Travis Etienne in the late 20s. So for the Broncos here, they could go defense, but I think probably you're looking at offensive tackle, replace Garrett Bowles. So I'm going to go with Alex Leatherwood, the offensive tackle from Alabama. And we're going to make that 2 Alabama players back-to-back. Next, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, who tried to solidify their secondary this year with Chris Harris in free agency. That didn't work out. He's on IR. They also lost Derwin James. Justin Herbert looks phenomenal. This is not a Trey Lance landing spot. They probably need to do better with the offensive line. But at this point, I don't know if there is an offensive tackle that's worthy of a top 10 pick that's left on the board. It's debatable. It could change. It's only October. So I think defense is probably the likely pick here. If Micah Parsons is somehow available, they'll take him. Even though they got Kenneth Murray last year, I don't think Dylan Moses is somebody that they're going to go after in this spot. I'm going to guess that they're probably going to try to upgrade the secondary a second time in a row, this time without an aging veteran. So the Chris Harris experiment didn't work out. I'm going to go with Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech for that pick. Next, the Minnesota Vikings, my team. Official draft hat of 2020, yeah. Vikings, definitely a Trey Lance landing spot. But I know Rick Spellman, and I know this team. They haven't drafted a first-round quarterback since Christian Ponder. I don't think that they have any interest of doing it again unless they're picking way up here. If they're picking way up here, then changes are going to be demanded. Absolutely. But with the top 10, they won their first game against the Texans. Justin Jefferson changes the offense immensely when he's in the starting lineup. Kirk Cousins looks a lot better when they have him in there. Do I think Kirk Cousins has it? No. If you know anything about me, I've never liked Kirk Cousins since he arrived in Minnesota. I've hated that $84 million guaranteed contract that he initially signed on. And then, to do that and to go 8-7-1 in his first season here, I think he's something like 18-18 since he's come to Minnesota. It's not good. It might be 19-18 after the Houston win. I don't remember. I forget when I looked that stat up. But at the same time, I don't think that they're going to do it. They just extended him. They seem to be perfectly happy with Sean Mannion as the backup, with Jake Browning and Nate Stanley on the practice squad, undrafted free agents and a 7th-round pick. It's just the quarterback situation just baffles me in Minnesota. It's like we just want somebody that doesn't screw up a whole bunch, and then we'll take care of the rest with the running game, and we'll play good defense. But the defense is bad this year, which is why they're right now in the top 10. If you kind of look at the situation in Cleveland with the Kevin Stefanski offense, which is where the Minnesota offense came from, you see sort of a mirror thing going on with Baker Mayfield just being along for the ride in an offense that is currently thriving. So they haven't had to depend on Baker Mayfield too much because everything else has worked out for them. In the Vikings situation, there's a lot of needs, and I don't think quarterback is the one that they're going to address right away unless they play way worse than they are now. They definitely need defensive help. The interior defensive line is a big weak spot, but I think they'll get Michael Pierce back next year, so they'll probably push that down the road. The secondary is very young and inexperienced, but I think they're happy with the players that they have, development aside. Safety is a strong position, even though Harrison Smith is getting long in the tooth. The linebacker position is fine. We'll get Anthony Barr back next year. Eric Kendricks is one of the more underrated ones in the league. So I think they're going to finally address the interior offensive line. I think they finally are going to do it. Because of this position, you could get somebody like a Wyatt Davis, who is probably the best interior offensive lineman in the draft from Ohio State. And because we have learned this season, especially this season, that you need good offensive guards to make your offensive line around him better. Riley Reif has done phenomenal this season, and they almost cut him before the season started. If he had better play next to him in the left guard position, somebody other than Dakota Dozier, he'd probably be even playing even better. So I think that this is, just a necessary, I hate to draft for need, but he happens to be the best interior offensive lineman in the draft, in my opinion. You could argue Creed Humphrey at this spot, or Sam Cosmi, whatever. But I think the Vikings need to do it. You look at the pass protection grades or the pressures allowed. You've given up almost 20 pressures from the right guard position in 4 weeks. That's just unacceptable. So I think Wyatt Davis needs to be the pick, and they need to finally address the interior and get better guards in there instead of career backups. Next, we have the Dolphins for their second pick. This would be their pick that they own, not the Texans' pick. So that's why they would be picking 2 times in the top 15. So for this pick, it's kind of a luxury pick. There's a lot of different things that I could go with, but I decided, as much as I just talked up Wyatt Davis, I'm going to go with Creed Humphrey, the interior offensive lineman from Oklahoma. This is a kid I've been looking at for a number of years, and when I saw him as a sophomore, I was like, wow, this guy's going to be different, He's definitely locked in as a top 15, top 20 pick, and I think he would definitely solidify that offensive line in Miami and better help protect Tua Tagovailoa as he develops next year in his sophomore season. The Lions toyed around with the idea of Trey Lance going here, but I don't think that's feasible. Matthew Stafford's only going on 33 years old. He's got some more years left in him. I don't think Matt Patricia is going to be here next year. I think he's going to get fired. If it doesn't happen soon, it'll happen eventually. But all their wide receivers are on contract years. Not going to be able to afford all of them. So I think going with some more explosive talent at the offense, at the wide receiver position, wouldn't be a bad idea. And who else would you want other than Jamar Chase, not available, other than Jalen Waddle, wide receiver from Alabama? So we've got another Alabama player in the top 15. He's not going to be the last one, I don't think, even though I think I've only got 3 on the board here so far. Yeah, 3 on the board. So I think Jalen Waddle in Detroit would probably be something that they would do if they can't afford to re-sign everybody. Moving on, the Bengals. A lot of different directions you could go here. You probably want to address the offensive line, but I think let's get a security blanket for Joe Burrow, and let's get a way more athletic tight end than they have right now. I mean, we're throwing to Drew Sample, for crying out loud. Drew Sample is a glorified blocking tight end who shouldn't have been drafted in the second round when he was. So let's go with Kyle Pitts, who has just looked phenomenal in the first month of the college football season. Next, we have the 49ers. I don't think that they're going to end up with a high enough draft pick to do this, but I decided to have some fun and be different. 49ers fans, do you honestly like Jimmy Garoppolo? Is he really going to be the guy to take you to the promised land? I don't think so. I think with the Kyle Shanahan offense, you need somebody who's way more athletic and way more daring, I should say. So how amazing would it be to get Trey Lance to be your next quarterback in the Bay Area? I'm going to catch heat for this because this is probably certifiably stupid, but I wanted to have some fun with this one because I couldn't decide where the 49ers should go at this point. So why not? You're never going to get another chance to get a guy like this unless you tank for a miserable number of years, and I don't think 49ers fans wants that. I think this would be an exciting addition to this offense and really open things up for what they want to do. Next, we have the Cardinals. I thought linebacker. I thought offensive line. But why not just go best player available and solidify the front 7 of the defense? Get Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle from Florida State. If the Vikings are picking lower enough, this is who I would probably take, him or Christian Barmore. But I think Marvin Wilson would be a great addition to the front 7 of the defense for the Cardinals. That is going to do it for the top 15 this mock draft. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Where did I go wrong? Obviously, I'm going to catch hell for Trey Lance going to the Niners at 14, but sue me. It's my mock draft. I can do what I want. And also let me know, if your team's not featured here, or, let me know if you want to know where I think that they might be going in the next draft or what they need. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.